Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning TV producer Chris Cangilla. This episode, we're recapping week 3 of January 2024, and here we are recording on another snowy Friday just outside Chicago for both of us. It's like we didn't really have the snow around the holidays, Chris, but now it's really kind of coming in like every day. My car's in a driveway. I'm brushing it off every day.
And not only is it, snowing, but we're getting those sub-zero temperatures where it's not even the wind chill is -10. And wind chill is like -25. It's horrible. So as you know, I have a dog, and my dog's about 13 years old, and he won't wear those boots, right? It's the worst thing ever. I can't get those boots on him. So I had to come up with a way to get him outside to do his business. So I came up, and here's a picture. We put toddler socks on him that have little nubbies on them, and use some athletic tape that stretches and put that around his socks and his legs to keep them on there. He wasn't too pleased, but it seemed to work out okay. So yeah, it's brutal winter, but at least we have Jim and Sam to listen to.
Exactly. And speaking of Jim and Sam, kind of some big publicity news. And we're going to talk about publicity later in regards to Jim Norton. I guess you could say my ears were burning.
Yeah.
But Jim was on Rogan again. We've heard him talk about his relationship with Joe. Joe told him, hey, you go through me. Like, they're buddies that go way back. Joe's like, you go through me. Joe has a great booker. But he's like, just text me. You want to come on? So Jim was there, did a terrific job. And would you just like kind of look back and remember his other appearances? Jim is like the perfect guest on Rogan. He is fantastic, just interesting, honest. Obviously, he's so great conversationally. Like, yeah, I don't catch every Rogan, but I imagine Rogan's like hardcore fans probably really appreciate Jimmy.
Well, what we like about Jim on Jim and Sam is his honesty, and it's perfectly suited for Joe Rogan's podcast because he's completely honest. He's telling Joe everything. We learned some new things as we'll get into a little bit later, but there's just this honesty, and they have the rapport. I've listened to this episode, but I can't get through it because it's so long. I'm not complaining, but it's just taking me a while to get through. So I'm not even done with it yet. But what I've listened to, I've absolutely loved.
And here's, how it's good. At the end, I'm like, oh, only 2.5 hours. Like I was able to finish it early in the week, and I wanted more, man. Like those guys together, I really always enjoy them. It's great that Joe still has Jimmy on. Speaking of news, kind of related to the show, but outside the show, I caught wind of a what do you call it? TWIX, based on the
TWIX
Fine podcast, a TWIX exchange between one Anthony Cumia and Greg Opie Hughes. This was January 17th. Maybe that was
that was Thursday or Wednesday. Yeah. So that was weird, and it came about, I guess, because there's a basketball game, and someone tweeted out some basketball commentators that were having a little bit of a disagreement, which was hilarious. It's a great video if you can see it.
Yeah, it is great. Like, people should go back and check Anthony's tweet because that's how it started. Like you said, it is one of the most contentious on-air arguments I've ever heard. Just weird, just like right at how they don't get along. Oh,
now before we get to the Opie and Anthony part of it, it's just done like professionally too. It's not like, well, you're a jerk. It's like, well, you decided, they have this professional way of talking to each other. And I can't believe that we had to drive home. It's just done in this, it's presented in an odd way, which I think makes it funny here.
Yeah. And I know how to talk about a split screen, and I didn't need you commenting. It's like, what are we listening to? There's a game going on.
Exactly.
So Anthony shared it. This is how it started. Anthony shared it and said maybe he was eating grapes with a question mark, kind of hinting at or suggesting, paying tribute to one of their, if not their first big on-air fight where listeners kind of knew, hey, there's something going on here. And then we kind of saw it, blow up from there in many different ways, in many different directions. So then Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, I got it here. He said probably sent the C word text to the wrong person.
Yes. With a bunch of emojis, a bunch of laughing, crying emojis. Yeah, so you're like, oh, they're friendly again. It's interesting, man.
Well, now this will just spark off Opie, doing a lot of Anthony-related tweets. I mean, anytime Anthony opens that door again, Opie tends to run in gangbusters, and it will be tweeting about the old days forever now.
Yeah. He'll hit it hard.
Yes.
I I guess speaking of some gentlemen who did get hit hard, that'd be the Dallas Cowboys. And you look on Reddit or you look on Twitter, in the middle of that game, probably early on in that game, people were mentioning not just the Jim and Sam show, but one Mike Montone. And my question is, and this is all due respect to Mike, who's a wonderful, smart, hilarious guy. The question is, from that exchange on the show, when they brought in Mike and had to break it down again, he had to defend his Cowboys again. Did it start to sound like to you like he's maybe done being a cowboy cuck, or do you think he's still a cowboy cuck?
I think he's still watching everything happening with glee in his eyes. No, he's upset.
A Dak cuck, more specifically, a Dak cuck.
Yeah. No, because it's so funny when they're having this conversation. They're talking about how this missteps and how they didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve. Jim always starts with, "I know he's a good athlete. I know he's a good." That's all he always says about Dak before he tells he's a choke artist. But Montone is an X and O kind of guy. He is all about football. He doesn't. Sam made fun of him. He doesn't know how many games are in the season, but he knows what, an offensive lineman is supposed to do in a crackback block or, all these kind of X's and O's type things. And so, he sees it for what it is. It's just going to be too hard to start the rebuild. And then we found out later in the week that the Cowboys retained their head coach, Mike McCarthy. So just stuck in the mud. Hey, what? My Broncos are stuck in the mud. Your Bears are stuck in the mud. So who knows what's going to happen with our teams?
Who knows? And I guess we do kind of know what's going to happen with Jason Kelce. There's reported that he's retiring, and it makes sense when you see footage of him on the sideline towards the end of the game. He's getting emotional. He's getting pretty emotional. And I guess he drove through a McDonald's, and he knew an employee there, signed a jersey, gave it to her, took a picture. I mean, he just seems like an awesome guy. Whether you're an Eagles fan or not, he seems like a great guy. So we're talking about the retirement, and Jim had an interesting kind of contrast to his situation, didn't he, Chris?
Yeah, he just, he's talking about how long the guy's been in the league. He's been in there a while, and he's achieved everything he wanted to achieve. And he said, you probably just don't want to stay too long, And he goes, "I know the feeling." We're like, "Oh, Jim." So Jim made reference to him being like Kelce, of SiriusXM and knowing when it's time to move on and been there a while. So I don't have high hopes for re-signing, but you never know.
You never know. And that's kind of what Sam said when we interviewed Sam and Nicole. Is he said, you never know. That still seems like it's coming up, but he hears a lot of time. And Jim just says stuff too and gets annoyed. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. There's no transition to this. Hulk Hogan saves a woman in a car accident. And when you see that report, because of all the goofing on him they've done on Jim and Sam, pointing out that maybe not the most honest, straightforward guy. Allegedly, I guess I should legally protect myself from Mr.
Yes,
Hogan.
of course. They talked a lot about that this week too.
Yeah, right. They did. But so basically, his account was he popped the airbag and saved the girl, right? But that is a crazy story in itself. But I just have to standing ovation. Somebody who grew up in the '90s like me, Travis. This led to the first of two amazing Seinfeld bombs by Travis, and they're talking about how do you have to help in that situation?
It's a good Samaritan. Yeah, the Good Samaritan law is where you're supposed to give aid, and more importantly, if you do give aid, you won't be held liable if somebody is hurt by that aid. Like if you're giving chest compressions and you break their ribs,
right?
They can't sue you for breaking their ribs. You're trying to help them. So what did Travis have to go with?
Oh, he started mentioning that he was confused because he thought the Good Samaritan law was that you could go to jail if you don't help someone. And he talked about these four individuals, and then he pulled up a Seinfeld clip, and I loved it because yes, it's absolutely amazing when they sneak a Seinfeld reference. I guess sometimes maybe Simpsons, mostly Seinfeld references past Jim.
Or The Office, American Office.
Sometimes they get past him too. This time I think it was the first time he actually pulled it up to show him. So
he goes, "I have a video of when that happened." Now, I got to admit, I was starting to go, there's never been a case where someone gets in trouble for not giving aid, and they can't get arrested if you. I'm like, I was hook, line, and sinker because I wasn't thinking along those lines. And as soon as he said, "Yeah, there's four people," and they start laughing, and so I bid on it too. But yeah, what a great reference! What a great job! It's so quick.
It was. I knew right away where they were going. I remember that
of course
finale so vividly.
Sure. And that was the season finale, right?
Yeah. It was the series finale. And so I just remember it
That's
being on. I
correct.
remember a big deal leading up to it, and the people are still breaking it down. I'm like, oh. But as much as Jim says he's leaving, I thought we maybe got a new iteration of Mr. Norton, a guy I'm going to call Company Man Jimmy. He started talking just a kind of, I guess it was a musical discussion, but a bit unprompted. Start talking about how he knows that Sirius really takes care of musicians and musical artists when kind of getting the rights to their songs to play their songs. And they did a little research, and it seems that they pay musicians more than your typical
Yeah,
radio station or iTunes.
he's not wrong in
Yeah.
his assessment because I guess streamers like, the Spotify's or whatever they are, for each, stream, each song played on their platforms, they really don't pay the artist very much at all. And Jim made the valid point, here, on radio, of course, if it's just regular terrestrial radio, and at Sirius, that they actually give the artist more of the royalty percentage than a streamer would. So he's not wrong in his assessment, but yeah, it was a little bit weird of company man Jimmy.
Moving along, Mark Normand stopped by the studio, and one of the first things he said was, "Oh, it's been a while." I think it was on like 2 weeks ago,
He
wasn't it?
he I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago, but it was
It was
recently.
recent. I was
Yeah,
glad he
because
came back.
I think we're thinking of Dan Soder because remember Dan Soder was on a couple last week or the week before, and Jimmy blew up his
Yeah,
podcast
yeah, yeah.
spot. But I know Mark's been on within the last couple months, right? Before the holidays,
I think
maybe?
so. I think maybe right before the holidays. I feel like yeah, like a month or so. Which is great because I think before that it was really a long time, like a year or so. Thrilled to have him back as you.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was an incredible guest, and we'll speak a little bit more about the stuff that he did. But I'll start, if I could, a little bit on some of the things that he shared, even though it's not in our best guest segment. He is doing an old fashioned, not old fashioned. He's doing the Beacon Theater, right?
Yeah.
So the guys had an old fashioned radio ticket giveaway, which we haven't heard in such a long time, where they had some pairs of tickets to give away to Friday and Saturday's show with Mark, and it was really cool. And Jim had a funny line. He mentioned that well, when he goes on, they're giving away tickets for Mark, and he goes, but when I go on the road, radio stations and I talk to, it's great because they give away the first 15 rows. So it's not being filled up. But Mark had an idea of having a special opener. Do you want to share that?
I was floored by this. It shows me that not only does he enjoy doing the show, but he's a fan of the show and a fan of the side characters. He was toying with the notion of having Sandy Kane open for him. Now, open might be a loose fit here
Yeah.
because he called open micers texting him, coming out of the woodwork to text him open.
Right.
I'm sure Mark knows who he wants to actually open the show, but she would be, I guess, one of the openers. He said when people are sitting down, if you've been to a comedy show or even like just theater, when people are sitting down kind of as the show starts, it could be kind of chaotic. So that's a great idea to have like a music act, maybe a little bit funny, and then you have the opening comic, then you have the headliner. So it's a great idea. It's an awesome
Sam
idea.
had some good input on that, but I always question Sam's input at times. Now, first of all, I always think Sam has great ideas, things that Jim should do, things that Jim should call his tours.
Yes.
Sam's full of great ideas, but Sam also loves to suggest things that will be train wrecks for his own enjoyment.
Yes, he does.
So I think there's a little bit. I think Sandy Kane would be a great idea, but there's also going to be a train wreck, and Sam would just love all of that. And I'm sure he'd show up to see that if it happened.
And Mark has been tricked by both Jim and Sam before. There was the time during the pandemic where Jim told Mark to pitch his car idea for a show, a car show to Seinfeld. And then Mark didn't hear back from Jerry for a while after that. And I believe Mark crafted the jonesing for a hang text. And the guys told him it was a great idea to send that to Seinfeld. Also, I don't believe heard back for a while from that. But
the interactions with Jerry Seinfeld that Mark has is hilarious because he's a lot like all of us, but he's in the business. So, Jerry does like him. They do spend time together. Mark just wants to be his buddy and wants to do more. And I don't think it's true that Mark wants it because he wants to glom on and to get more famous and do shows. Oh, yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of that. But also, he just wants to be Jerry's buddy. It's like, you and I want to be Jim and Sam's buddy, right?
Yeah, man, we're jonesing. That's why we're doing.
Right, we're jonesing for the hang. We're jonesing for them to come on the podcast.
For something. So Mark did have lunch again with Jerry. and it's funny. It's kind of like an undisclosed restaurant. I think it's the one that Jerry's eaten with or had coffee with for a few comedians and comedians in cars getting coffee.
It's not the one in Seinfeld? Just kidding.
Oh, that'd be
No, I'm
amazing.
kidding.
That'd be, he just
I
went
know
there
that
like every
exists, but can
time.
you imagine that he would be hanging out there? It's
Usual
like
table,
all these
Mr.
tourists go
Seinfeld.
to see, yeah, all the
Yeah, every
tourists go to
tourist
see
goes
that
there.
building, and they're like, well, look, there's really Jerry there. Well, he eats here all the time for real. No,
And we know
not gonna,
from Jim and Sam that he does not suffer fools. So,
no.
but yeah, so I guess where is that place? We don't know, but I loved the visual of Mark, like you're saying, like being a fan and wanting more, but also wanting to be a friend.
Mhm.
That he said he would gauge the conversation based on if Jerry's scarf was coming off or not. Like it's almost over,
Yeah,
putting his scarf on almost over, and then they'll talk about I
Cat
think he
Williams.
said Cat Williams, yeah, and then he put it back on.
Yeah. No, he takes it off. I mean, he started to put it on when he's ready to leave.
Yeah, and
And
then
if he
takes
gets
it
him
off.
invested, he'll
Takes
take
it
it
off. Oh,
off
okay,
and
let's
stay
talk
for a little
more.
while.
Right.
It's like you just
Right.
want, hey, don't go yet. Don't go yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Good
it.
stuff. Good stuff.
There was this is sometimes you just don't see this stuff coming. There's a lot of go-to bathroom talk every episode, pretty much.
Yeah, there is.
Usually we know Jimmy when he lets us know he's got to go quick. He always comes in late to the next break, and I was caught off guard by this one. Maybe arguably the best part of the week is somebody went bathroom in pants. Jim just did because he had the flu. He had the fluid and
Colonoscopy. The
colonoscopy
colonoscopy prep. Yeah. I mean,
prep he had to do. So that went on his couch through his pants. Who had a mishap this time, Chris?
yeah, it's funny. And Sam's a master, as he always is saying, over the weekend, I was out and about and I made it to the bathroom. Travis, did you able to go? Yep. Yeah, I went Montone. Yep. Troy? He goes, no. Troy, Troy didn't make it home from the restaurant. Yeah. So Troy went bathroom in his pants. And so he told the story about he was out having, what do you call that? Ramen. He was having ramen with his fiance and his fiance's sister,
Yeah,
and he thought he could just let one out, a little fart on the way home, and it turned out it wasn't. So he had to
more.
claim the bathroom first and do a little cleanup action. And it comes right off the heels of them talking about how they found out that Ozempic
Yeah,
might be possibly giving some people nonstop diarrhea. Nonstop diarrhea. Think about that for a second. How is that possible? And
towel.
does that mean every time you make bathroom, it's who knows? But yeah, it's incredible. And Jim, as we know, and we've talked about many times on this podcast, is very concerned about going bathroom. I love how we don't say going to the bathroom. I love going
Yeah.
bathroom, going bathroom, and that's his main concern. And he sure has been leaving a lot lately. He gets, I got to go, leave in the middle of a bit. He'll leave early. He told the story about leaving his workout and explaining to his trainer that he had there's something going on with that guy. And I don't know if it's psychological because if you remember when he was a kid, he used to hold it in when he was kneeling down, I think, right? In
He
his
was
room,
saying, yeah, like he was saying his prayers by his bed. He would kneel down
hold
and
it in.
hold it
So
in.
maybe it's something psychological, or maybe there's something. Well, I know he gets all his medical tests, so hopefully it's not physical, but guy is obsessed with going number two.
And I think pretty much everything is psychological with Jim. Everything he talks about and does, and that's why he's so amazing. With Troy, I love that this happened. I'm sorry, Troy had to deal with it. Troy knows it was gold for the radio. I love
Yes.
that the kind of the kicker of the story is he's with his fiance. They're on this walk after ramen, but his fiance's sister or friend,
Yes. Yes, sister.
his sister was with them. So another could be another level of embarrassment. And what does he do when they get back? He goes, "I go bathroom first."
Yeah. And the best part too is he's because he's got a cool fiance. He tells her,
Tells
"Oh
her
yeah,
she thought it was
I
funny.
made it in my pants," and he tells her because she would think it's funny. So that's awesome. That's kind of how my wife and I mean, I've had code brown issues. I know you've had code brown issues, and they love to make fun of me when I do. So of course,
And Troy also blamed it not just on the ramen, but the cold. He thought the cold
yeah,
was a big
that's
factor.
right. That's
And
right.
Sam, that was maybe the best part of the whole thing. And
That
Sam,
was very good.
it's cold. And then they went around the room again. Like, you ever had trouble with the cold?
So I want to share something with you. You had some inside information when we started doing this podcast, and we've held on to it and we've been quiet about it. But someone was talking about it a little bit. Share with the fans what we learned this week that you knew back in the day.
Yes, I did know. So the news came out first. If anybody listened to Rogan, you heard it. He told Joe, and then it was also when Mark Norman was on. They kind of came up that Jim was during the pandemic. Jim was in Canada for 15 months, so a lot of the pandemic. And I did know this, and you know, Jim and Sam guy kept it close to my vest. I
You
did
tell
let you know because
your
I trust
podcast
you.
partner, yeah, of course.
So trust my pod partner, and yeah, Jim's so awesome. I did after I stopped working for NBC Sports in Chicago. I want to do a web series, get some interviews, get a little buzz. I got actually some like write ups in like the I think the Sun Times and places like that. But Jim came on, did my show. I did a segment with some people where we write jokes for each other, and Jim did that. He was great. But before he's like, I'm in Canada right now. I've been here. Don't tell anybody. I've been here the
Yeah.
whole time. So I'm really interested. Yeah, it's funny that's coming out
It was
now.
an incredible story too, because
Yeah,
on Rogan he says my producer told me that they're closing the border, and then later on said it was Travis, which is
Chevy.
he has Travis to thank for pretty much this pairing of Nikki and Jim, and maybe getting married because they're of course dating, but the test for them to be able to get married, Jim said, was living together in a small apartment in Montreal during the
Yeah,
pandemic was really
yeah,
what helped them do that. And he also said they're dealing with a lot of immigration issues, which is another thing we're waiting to hear back how hard it was for her to immigrate to the United States.
yes. And I almost always remember everything from Jim and Sam. I did not catch DeRosa almost spoiling this and outing Jim for being in Canada.
Oh, I remember this because I'm like,
Really?
what? Yeah, what did
Wow.
he say? And yeah, I do remember this. And yeah, he wouldn't let something go. Usually I can tell like when they're in the studio and they give visuals, even though we don't see it. But if I think DeRosa said something yeah, well you've been up in Canada the whole time, and you can in the pausing of of the audio, you can tell that Jim is glaring at him like, shut up, man, don't bust up my. And he goes, no, and Jim's like, no, 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 I wasn't. And like, yeah, yeah, you were. And Sam was like, no, he wasn't. And it's like, no, no, I know you, because someone, DeRosa's defending his position. I'm like, shut up, man. So that was kind of how it kind of got out there about him being up there a little bit. Now, I don't think it was so much so that people had an issue with it or knew about it. But I love how he's saying like, yeah, I was up there. We figured out a way to do it all the time, and it was like no one was in the studio anyway. So it was Sam was at home. I was up there. No big deal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it worked out. Yeah, in every circumstance there, they realized that they could be together. It worked out. I mean, he kept doing the show. The show, we talked about this at our show. The way they worked efficiently during the pandemic was fantastic. Like everyone else doing Zoom and remote had difficulties, not us. But yeah,
Yep.
they did a great job. And to hear that he was so far away during it too, just kind of,
So
you
does
know,
that mean that the Red Solo Cup incident happened up in Montreal?
yeah, I believe it did. I
Yeah,
believe it did.
very good. I love
Great
that.
points.
Drinking
Uh,
some good stuff.
yeah, it was. He talked about that again. He talked about that on Rogan actually.
I haven't gotten
Um,
there yet.
more stuff with Nikki.
Yeah.
They kind of talked about this, I think maybe with Norman, but if you watch their amazing web series, I think Nikki and Jim in New York or in NYC on YouTube, if you search Nikki and Jim, definitely subscribe. But she always makes fun of him for being, maybe
Say it.
gay.
Yeah.
And Jim has a great sense of humor about whatever, you call that preference. And that is just one of the funniest parts of the way she kind of comes up with ways to do that is very funny, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that, we're not condoning this behavior, of course, but it is funny because, Nikki has shared that she loves making fun of Jim and calling him gay. And Sam brought up that, if you think that, the comments outside, and we'll talk about some of the people out in the outside world and so-called fans that call in, giving Jim a hard time about his preference and calling him those things. Sam goes, if you think that stuff that is brought up outside of the studio, and is harsh and funny, you should hear what Nikki says to
Yeah,
her own husband about
yeah,
the same thing because it's more brutal and more hilarious.
absolutely. Something brutal that Jim experienced with Nikki, and this could have been a, discrimination thing, I think. Jim didn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
He don't. That's something that's interesting too. And we might talk a little bit more about it with Jim's desire for more publicity, but with what they're doing, it's just them. on a YouTube series. When they did Whitney's podcast, it's just them. They're being funny. Jim hates messaging, you
Right.
know, so
Not getting on
I
his, it's
think
not
so.
getting on his soapbox and
Yeah,
saying the things. And he even mentioned also too that Nikki is one of the first people not to, defend everything about being a trans person.
yeah,
It's a good match. It's a really good match.
absolutely, absolutely. So, as I was getting into the post office, uh, Jim experienced something where a person wasn't really like helping them, and they just kind of start going around to stories, and Troy had trouble. And I 100% agree. It's probably every post office. I get it. That's a tough customer service job where there's, and remember Seinfeld again,
There
Newman
you
would be like,
go.
the mail, it keeps coming. So it does drive people crazy. We've seen people go crazy in post offices, but to Jim's case, you're getting paid, you have great benefits. Like, don't just like yell at someone because they can't find a form. Half the time the forms aren't there even. So I'm with them. They get, there's one by me. There one guy's nice, he can be a little tempered, and one
Yeah.
guy's a complete a-hole too. So
Right. And that's the thing. They also mentioned that sometimes these people are coming, that people that work there are former veterans who may have had some, PTSD or any,
oh maybe.
kind of issues,
Yeah.
and it really, messes them up. But they plug them in there because it's a nice government job. It's like, oh, good. So we need to suffer instead of getting these people the proper help that they need.
Yeah. Yeah. So if only they're a little nicer.
Yeah.
Maybe Jimmy's he's got to do another, I think he wants to do another round of phone calls or letters about the one
Yeah. He
employee
didn't get any
individual.
satisfaction from the guy that he
No,
was upset with. So,
not satisfying.
yeah.
Uh, Speaking of not satisfying, there was a caller named Chip, and first of all, it just sucks that his name is Chip or he calls himself Chip because
Yeah. Ruins
there's a
it.
Chip we love,
Exactly.
we want to hear more of, but he is arguably the worst caller ever. Because I love when Jim points it out. If people, the guy paid to go see Jim, but people say like I'm a fan or whatever, and then at the end of the call they're like discriminating against Jim or
Well,
saying
it's not
stuff,
even that. It's like they call in under other pretense,
false
right? They want to talk.
pretenses. Yeah,
Yeah, they want to talk about this,
and
and
then wait a
then but
minute,
they really want to
yeah,
give Jim grief about his sexual
his
preference. Yeah,
lifestyle,
that's what it
right?
comes down, his
Right.
lifestyle. And Jim said, just call in with that. I'll
Yeah.
talk to you about it. And he
Yeah.
does talk to people about it. And
Yeah.
he's willing to. And I think if you separate everything that you like about Jim, you gotta like that the most, man. That man will talk about anything that's going on
Yes.
that you disagree with. He'll do it. He'll
Yes.
do it. He won't agree with you. Have a nice discussion, but he prefers honesty. It goes back to him hating messaging, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
goes back to that. So yeah, this guy was a jerk, a lot like that other guy, and I've forgotten his name, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
called in and was giving Jim a hard time about before the holidays.
Yeah. And Jim is the best, arguably the best debater in the world
Real good.
because he just has his points. He's calm. He's calm. If you go back, you watch, if it was maybe CNN where he debated Lindy West, he was just calm and she was all worked up about some feminist issues, and he was just calm and being a matter of fact. And like, there's no one who debates people about it. And then when he gets ticked off, like with callers, he just hammers them too. And it's usually after a while. I love listening to him to argue with people or debate people. He's so kind of articulate and crafted the way he does it. It's great. Perhaps someone who's not as articulate that has resurfaced is a great philosopher of the modern era, a Quanstradumbass. And I love Sam was on fire this week with Troy. Like, hey, did you make the bathroom okay? Did you? And
Yeah.
then like, let's revisit the Quanstradumbass predictions. I mean, Sam was amazing this week. So they revisit the Quanstradumbass predictions, and how are most of them going, Chris?
Yeah, most of them aren't panning out, and I'm happy about that because they were very, disturbing things that could happen. So, it was about masks on planes, it was about closing things down, and none of that has happened yet. There's still some time. And then the biggest one was that they thought that, we'd be, Quantra Dumbass believed that we would be working from home by January or February. And they thought, well, gosh, that would really be stinky. But I think Troy admitted that that was wishful thinking. He wants to be back in Florida working from home. So yeah, maybe that one was just a little bit of wishful thinking versus the devastation that is to come.
We will see. We will see. I mean, right now we're
Yes,
just worried about the weather. So I don't know. I can't even picture some kind
exactly.
of COVID situation or the super COVID they were talking about. Real quick, we get through this. We already did the best guess, so we'll go quick through that too. But there was the second Seinfeld bomb I hinted at with Travis Dog, came from the I think this was the Peruvian aliens, right? This time, they had the news story that they had bones covered in papier-mâché, which is a
Yeah.
Seinfeld reference. Amazing one. Just, I mean,
And I'm not sure if that was that one or if they're still talking about the one in the Mexican one
Mexico.
that was, yeah, for the
Yeah, I'm not
town
sure.
square, which of course I love. I was hoping that they get into our town square when they were talking about the town square stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely, they're on top of the Seinfeld references for
Yeah,
sure.
and our guy Razor Licious turned us on to the Rogan interview. Said there's a town square mention. I didn't think it was gonna be the podcast,
Yeah.
but Jim said town square. Could have Rogan mentioned. It's all right.
Just
It's
throw that
right
out there
there.
to the biggest audience in the world on Rogan. That would have helped a little bit, but
No,
that's all
I'll
right.
help the guys. It's all
Yeah.
right.
All right. Little rub.
And real quick with this, you're a Rush fan.
Yeah.
Geddy Lee's baseball collection, dude. Like you see some of the stuff in my background. I collect some stuff. Got a couple signed baseballs. To have every guy in the 3,000 hit list sign a ball that has to be worth a fortune.
Yeah, and there's some, discrepancy on that too, of Roberto Clemente, right? Because he passed away shortly after, and they weren't sure if he signed it when. But anyway,
Doesn't matter. It doesn't
it
matter
doesn't
when he
matter.
signed it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But Geddy Lee is awesome. I'm a big Rush fan. I probably shared that a lot. I had the opportunity to go see him on his book tour, which I have a copy right here. This is an incredible book,
Oh, that looks
and
awesome.
yeah, and it's pretty thick, and I've gone through the whole thing. I'm not a good reader, so I listen to it on audio. So a lot of audio listening there. But Geddy Lee was great. He's a huge baseball fan, and he talks a lot about that. And also with Geddy Lee, his parents, both of his parents, are Holocaust survivors
Oh,
or
wow.
were Holocaust survivors. They've since passed. But yeah, so just incredible stories that he had in there, and he had a lot of great insight on his collection. And I guess recently we found out that he had like over 200 baseballs from the Negro leagues that he shared with the what do you call it, the museum that's down there. I think it's in Kansas City, and really it's just he's a good man. And Jim should like Rush. He said he doesn't like Rush that much, but I was looking through here and I remember a lot of the stories. Jim should really like Rush because if you look at this picture right there, can you see that?
Yeah, Kiss.
Kiss.
Yeah,
Rush used to open up for Kiss and spend a lot of time touring with them. So, Jim should like Rush a little bit more just because how much Rush liked Kiss.
absolutely. And speaking of Jim, he closed Thursday's show by, I don't know about it's ripping his publicist, but did put it out there that, I have a publicist. I'm just getting on podcasts with my friends. I'd like to see a little more of an effort. Holla at your boy, Jim. That's what I do. Tell Johnny Brand Muffins, like, let's go, man. I agree. There's a lot more things you could be on, especially with your web series, your tour, your career. So, I mean, yeah, dude, let's get after it. And I think one of the things that upset him and made him kind of focus on his publicist is that there was a comic. Sounds like is one friendly with Jim. Jim knows a little bit, and that did the show. Um, and that person didn't reciprocate in having Jim on, and Jim said they kind of had them on as a favor. So I was on Reddit. I jumped on Reddit to see what people thought of this. I want to get your opinion, Chris. And this is all speculation from Reddit, from us. I mean, who knows who it is that kind of ghosted Jim? But some of the suggestions, I think, were good suggestions. Right away, I thought of Theo Von. Bobby Lee was thrown out there. He hasn't been on in a long time. I don't know if he was ever on Jim and Sam. Maybe once. Bill Burr on recently for the Patrice benefits. And Tom Segura, I think he was on a while ago. And you don't hear a lot about him. And Chris DiStefano, was he on a few months ago?
Yeah, he was on recently. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think it's any of those guys? Do you have a guess? Is it somebody else? Well, what's
Yeah,
your speculation?
I don't know as much. My speculation is Theo Von, and only because I don't think he's been on Jim and Sam in a long time. I think he was a frequent Opie guest, right?
I think he was on like 4 months ago, would be my guess. He was
Oh,
on
okay.
this past year.
I don't remember us talking about him. But anyway, that's fine. Anyway, he
loves Edna Faust. He came back and talked about Edna
then
Faust.
if he knows Edna Faust, then it definitely would have happened in the last year, because that's when Edna happened for us. But yeah, I just don't know as much. And Theo's podcast, I hear, is just exploding. So it could have been Theo, I think. And is he in Austin as well?
I think he is now. I want to say he did.
So maybe that's why it's fresh in Jim's mind. But that would be my guess. Just speculation.
Wow. Right? I didn't think about the Austin angle. That is fantastic. So here, we have a few minutes left. But with the Austin angle, then it could be Segura too. And the people on Reddit were saying that they think, in a pure speculation, that Jim, there's some kind of issue with Segura before. I was thinking Burr, because Sam was disappointed. He's like, oh, that's disappointing. That's disappointing.
Yeah.
But Patrice benefit is a big deal, close to Jim's heart. They go back a while.
They're real tight.
I honestly don't know. I like the Austin angle because he was just there. I think that's strong. So again, let us know what you guys think. It's pure speculation, but very interesting that somebody did not reciprocate for the great Jim Norton. Best guess, we already dissected Mark Norman, only guest this week. He would have
been the best guest anyway. He's so
I
good
think you're right.
Show.
I think you put anyone else in there. He was absolutely fantastic. Great to have him back. And now, do you have a line of the week, Chris?
Yeah, one stood way above all the others, and I will share it with you. Hope I don't blow up your spot, but I have a feeling it could be yours as well. But it was with Mark Norman and Jim. And as soon as Mark came in, he was talking with them for a little while, and he said to Jim, "Hey, you're way ahead of the curve on the trans thing," which is perfect, because Jim was way ahead of the curve on the trans thing. And Jim said, "Yeah, I just wish it was on Bitcoin. I wish I was way ahead of the curve on Bitcoin." And Mark said, "Well, you lost a bunch of money on both. Meaning, of course, Bitcoin, and then his wife has spent a lot of money so quick." And then Jim said, "Well, yeah, and both of them have gone down extremely fast."
That's awesome.
Just these two great comedians, back and forth, boom, boom, boom. That was so good, so quick, so honest, which is kind of like the theme of this whole podcast. Honesty. It was great. How about you?
No, I agree. It's like ping pong balls. They're so quick. Mine is not as good as that. It's overly simple, but I love during the crazy jerky chip call that towards the end, Sam was just doing a Sam snicker, and Chip goes, "Shut up, Sam! Shut up, Sam!" And then everyone in the studio is dying, and that just, it shows you, yes, Chip is crazy, and he's crazy. Sam's not even talking. He's telling him to shut up. But that's also Sam's kind of needling nature, as you just know Sam's like stirring up stuff in there with a look or a laugh. So I think it said a lot about kind of everybody, that simple remarks. That's my line of the week. And we got a minute left here. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Leave a comment. Like it if you see it on social, and keep listening. Tell your mailman. And Chris, thanks for everything you do for us and the show. It is great to see you as always.
Great to see you as well. We're due for another lunch, I think, even though it's been about a month. I miss seeing you in person. It was great when we got together. And you know what? It's great when we all get together, because like Jim and Sam, like Jim himself, we really try to bring a lot of honesty to the town square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not Doug Bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.